We've got 2 recordings going, so we're getting all of our technology figured out. Yeah, I'm here with Val Bonnet, Dr. Val Bonnet. And
this is my friend Kelly Duncan.
yes.
And we used to work together at the Knoxville Hospital and Clinics.
We did.
Kelly was my nurse.
Yes.
And she kept me sane. We had a lot of fun. We laughed a lot.
That's arguable. We did. We had fun.
She's right.
I
wasn't sane.
So much fun. Yeah. So we've just spent the last few minutes trying to get set up for this, and I am personally having some anxiety. So,
which is ironic.
I know,
because that's
right?
what we're talking about today, right?
Yes, and that is our topic for today. So, anxiety, causes of anxiety, what causes it? How can we deal with it? Coping mechanisms. So I'm just gonna let you kind of
let me do my thing a little bit. So anyway, I think our purpose here, I want Kelly to kind of talk about what our purpose here for this 20 minutes or however long we're here is. I think that we both have a goal that we want to help people, but especially women, live healthier, happier lives.
Yeah.
And we want to take, and we apologize for any noise in the background because we're enjoying the great outdoors, but
absolutely.
We want to look at this from like a more natural perspective, and our main thing, I think, is helping the body do what it does really well naturally, which is heal itself. And if we give the body what it needs, then we have a better outcome than if we try to mask symptoms using pharmaceuticals or other things like that. So I think we'll start there, that this is, we hope to do a bunch of these little educational things in the future, but I think going forward that we want you guys to, whoever's listening to this, to know that our goal is to help women specifically live happy, healthier lives by letting the body do what it does naturally, which is heal itself. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And so, Kelly, I think you had a little survey on your website.
I did. One of the questions I got was, this was just a simple thing that someone had written in and said, she has anxiety when she goes to work. On her way to work, she has a commute and deals with anxiety in the morning. And, what is something that she could do differently to handle that kind of stress, that kind of anxiety?
Okay. That's a great question, and I think it's a really important topic because I think everybody, at some level, everybody deals with anxiety. And like everything else, anxiety is kind of I think that anxiety is kind of on a spectrum. And so you have people who are over here on one side of the spectrum who have, they can handle it about everything, and they have very, very low levels of anxiety. I wouldn't say, I don't think anybody has zero anxiety unless maybe they have maybe a psychological problem if they have zero anxiety.
Some anxiety is good. We need a little bit of anxiety to get through the day.
Right. We want to be safe. We don't want to explode by doing things that are are stupid, or we don't want to fall off of a mountain, right? So we need to have a little anxiety to keep us safe. But on the other side of the spectrum, some people are way over here, and they have so much anxiety that it interferes with their lives.
Yeah, it paralyzes them.
Right, paralyzes them.
Cannot function.
Right, and when it gets to this, when it's all the way over here, a lot of times traditional medicine ties a diagnosis to that person. And, maybe they give them a diagnosis of anxiety disorder or agoraphobia, or, all the hundreds of different phobias there are. And, once you have a diagnosis in medicine, guess what? What happens?
You get a pill.
Exactly.
You get your script.
You get your script because now you have a diagnosis. And, I actually have notes on anxiety, but, anxiety, the definition is is having excessive apprehensiveness about real or perceived threats. So excessive apprehension or fear. And when you have that, it activates your sympathetic nervous system, and you can have high heart rate, your eyes dilate, your blood pressure goes up, part of your thinking brain shuts down, and your emotional brain can kind of take over, and it can kind of be paralyzing. And when that happens over and over and over, what happens then?
Those are the panic attacks that people talk about.
Exactly.
The racing heart, the chest tightness, the shortness of breath.
Right. How many
The
emergency
sweating.
room visits
Yeah.
occur because people have panic attacks and symptoms like that?
And they think they're having a heart attack.
Right. And
Over and over again.
over and over again. And the weird thing is you seriously feel like you are having a heart attack.
Absolutely. Been there.
And you do need a workup in most situations. If you've never had that before and you have your first panic attack and you have chest pain and shortness of breath and a high pulse rate, you do need to be evaluated probably to make sure nothing serious is going on.
Absolutely.
Right?
And expect that. So
Right?
it just goes with it, yes. You have to rule that out.
Yeah,
So,
you have to rule out something cardiac going on. And sometimes people are angry and upset when they get a diagnosis of panic attack, when they feel like it's, something more serious, physically going on. Because it is a serious thing, and it is really scary.
Yeah, it is.
So have you had a panic attack?
Oh, yes.
You have?
I have.
Okay,
In
tell us
fact,
about it.
I would love to share because I thought that I was losing my mind. I didn't think that I was ever going to be able to function normally again. I mean, it was to the point where I was starting to wonder about travel. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because
Wow.
I had a couple of panic attacks while I was in hotel rooms. I don't know if that was a trigger. But now looking back, I realize it was good old menopause that was triggering all of this. Yeah, because
We'll get into that later.
Yes.
How hormonal imbalance can cause anxiety.
But I think I've always had anxiety
Right.
my entire life. I mean, I
Right.
think I had that predisposition, genetic, and just it's always been there for me. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's kind of a thing, isn't it? I mean, if
Well-
you kind of have that predisposition, it's more likely to happen or exacerbate in menopause.
I think I think there's a lot of really good points that you've already just made. Number one, it is more likely to run in families. And it's hard, genetically, we are the combination of what the genetics that we got from our parents. We're a combination of those genetics, and in those genetics, everybody has a ton of damage to their DNA that can cause abnormal neurotransmitter production, vitamin production, and the ability to use and like for folate, like half the population are running around with a folate, issue. And so, we are the combination of the genetics that we got from our parents, and sometimes those genetics make it more likely to have emotional things.
Thank you for explaining that so well.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes there's a stigma with anxiety, with these disorders, and people tend to think that you can just snap out of it.
Right, exactly.
And it's not that easy.
Those are the people
not.
on this side of the spectrum that think that why can't you just handle your emotions, because it's, it may not be logical to have a phobia against flying, or mice or heights or whatever or driving to work. It may not seem rational to other people. And in fact, it may not even seem rational to the person who's suffering with that anxiety. And so then they can develop a lot of anger and at them, at themselves, why can't I just snap out of this?
Yeah.
It's not rational,
Yeah.
and that doesn't help anything, right?
And it's frustrating. It's frustrating because you start to feel the symptoms and you think, oh, here we go again. And until you get a handle on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there are medical causes of anxiety, and since I wrote the notes, I'm going to just, talk about my notes.
Please do.
Okay.
I mean, it explains it so well.
Right. So things like heart disease can be associated with anxiety, and anxiety can probably contribute to heart disease, also from the chronic stress hormones that can occur. Diabetes, issues with your thyroid can especially hyperthyroidism can cause panic attacks, can cause your heart to race, cause your blood pressure to be higher. So thyroid issues, and these days I'm seeing people in the functional medicine space who are over treating thyroid disorders and giving people too much thyroid hormone. So they are actually inducing hyperthyroidism, which is not safe, long term. So that's an issue that I'm seeing. There's a bunch of drugs that can increase anxiety symptoms. What is one of the big classes that everybody seems to be on these days for concentration?
Oh yeah, your Adderall, your Strattera,
anything for attention deficit disorder,
yes.
Are stimulants.
Yes.
And all of the stimulants are kind of on a continuum. I like to do continuums, obviously, but from caffeine.
Yeah, whoops.
Which is
this is in moderation.
A mild stimulant, all the way over to methamphetamine.
Yeah.
These are, cocaine, methamphetamine. These are all in the stimulant category, and a lot of medications that are used for attention deficit disorder are stimulants, and they're closer to over here on that side of the spectrum, so they can cause anxiety and stuff like that. Anxiety can be caused when your alcohol is wearing off. So, oh, Kelly, okay.
Did you write this specifically for me?
I didn't. This just happened.
I feel like you did. Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yeah, and I thought I was the only one.
No. So.
Yeah. So lots of reasons for me not to.
So when you're in that hotel room the next day and your wife, you had a couple of drinks on the plane.
What happened?
What happened?
Yeah.
So anything that is a central nervous system depressant, like alcohol, like certain other drugs, opioids, things like that, benzos, especially benzos. When those things clear your system, you are going to have increased anxiety. When something that's suppressing your immune system wears off, that's gonna have a stimulant effect, and that can cause anxiety.
Yeah.
So
It's bizarre.
yeah.
That's how it works.
Any chronic stressor like chronic pain, any chronic illnesses like gut issues. There's a big one that are adrenal tumors, which are very rare, but they cause a big rush of stress hormones, and especially adrenaline. And so people with these rare adrenal tumors can have this huge rush of adrenaline, and they'll get a panic. They can have panic attacks and heart symptoms.
Oh my.
Yeah. Those are rare. I think I've seen one in my entire career, because they are rare. But yeah,
It happens.
It does. And so if somebody has episodes of extremely high blood pressure with high pulse rate, they should have urine testing to make sure they don't have an adrenal tumor. But that's very, very unlikely, compared to anxiety, which everybody gets.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I still work in a clinic, and I would have to say, just as a guess, I mean, at least 75% of our people that come through have some form of anxiety or have had it and have been treated for it. It's just so prevalent, and it's sad because so many of those people don't have mechanisms.
Right. They don't have coping mechanisms.
No idea.
Right. You know, the things that, you know, we in medicine are aware that like up to 75 to even 90% of our health issues are like stress related. And yet, instead of getting down to the bottom, you know, how do we deal with stress appropriately?
Yeah.
We medicate it,
Yeah.
you know. So that's
Well,
sad.
And once again, there's, you know, that's all there's time for. So that's like
Right.
the quickest fix. And,
Right.
Yeah.
'Cause we
and that's
don't
what people expect.
Right.
I think most people do expect it. Although there are people who are actually asking, you know, I'd really rather do something else.
Something
besides take
safer.
pills or something else I can do. What do I really need to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have other options, then, you know, sometimes the prescription might be the only option that you're given. And unfortunately, there are entire Facebook groups full of thousands of people who are damaged by benzodiazepines and other antidepressants and other psych meds.
Yeah.
Because it is at best a temporary fix, and at worst, like I've already said, it actually increases the amount of anxiety that people get as that medication is wearing off. Their underlying anxiety is higher than it was before they took the medicine.
Yeah.
So those medicines are you know, should only be used under extreme situations. Like
And
if
they're
you have
appropriate.
if
And
you have a
there's-
phobia with flying, and it's going to be a, you know, and if it's going to be something that's every day, like your friend who, you know, is having trouble getting to work, then it's going to be safer to find other methods of dealing with that, you know. So, you know, risk factors for causing anxiety, child adverse events, you know, one of those big things that people are starting to talk about. You know, if there was a trauma in childhood when the child was too early to make sense of it and too early to be able to have any control over the stressor, that can cause chronic changes, brain changes, that can lead to worse outcomes later on in life, like, you know, like cancer and heart disease, and even a significantly shorter life expectancy, you know, which is really, really sad. So anyway, and anxiety can cause depression, it can cause substance abuse, it can cause sleep issues, severe insomnia. It can screw up your gut and cause leaky gut syndrome and IBS. It's a cascade. It can cause chronic headaches. It can cause and increase underlying pain. So if you have an injury and now you have that anxiety and depression around that pain, you know, you don't heal as well because your cortisol levels are higher, and you develop chronic pain. Anxiety can lead to social isolation. You know, I mean, I'm
100%.
sure there are people who
100%.
don't, you know, maybe they don't want to go to a performance because they're going to be in a crowd or something, or to a party, or to, you know, other things, because work exactly.
They can't make it to work.
Right.
They're disabled.
That was my next thing. Problems at work or school. I mean, even like talking in class, anxiety can decrease your performance, and your teachers, you know, may not know how smart you are because you're too scared to answer or raise your hand in class because you're afraid of putting yourself out there, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And, you know, all of these things can impact your quality of life and even increase your, you know, people's chances of suicide.
Oh yeah.
You know, so it's
to live with that day in and day out and never get any relief.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's one of those things that can be kind of like a snowball. You know, it's kind of it's kind of like when anything that we think about our brain recruits neurons to make that thought stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a recruitment process that happens. So have you noticed that in your own life?
Yes. And if you can't change those pathways, you don't know the interventions to change those pathways.
Right.
It just,
So
like
those,
I said, it just cascades. And
it does cascade.
continues on and on.
There's a really interesting brain scientist. Her name's Caroline Leaf. And she's written several books and done a lot of research. And one of her things is, and this would be helpful for people with anxiety, it's identifying thought processes and kind of trying to, you think about a thought as a tree. A thought's like a tree. And when you think that thought, it's like nourishing that tree and making it grow and be stronger. So she has ways, she has some techniques on identifying those thought processes and breaking them down.
What did you
at
say the
root.
name of, what's her name again?
Her name is Dr. Caroline Leaf.
Okay. I'm going to just type it in the notes.
Yeah, go ahead and type it in. I think she's got a bunch of books. She's got a bunch, Caroline Leaf, Leaf.
I'm just gonna, and she's a neuroscientist?
Yeah, she's, I think, a PhD neuroscientist.
Okay.
And she has a book, I think it's something like How to Have a New Brain in 21 Days, or How to Break Patterns or Habits in 21 Days.
Okay.
Anyway, I know her name, but I'm not sure of the book's name. But it really, she talks about how it's like a tree, and
That's a really good analogy.
Right.
It's so, yeah.
right.
And I never used to believe, does she use affirmations? Does she do something that's similar to that? Or
Right.
Yeah.
She's going to like help grow new trees
yeah.
that have positive connotations
Yeah.
instead of the negative, the giant.
The constant barrage
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah. Because from a neuroscience point of view, your thoughts are connected through neurons in your brain and synapses, and we can make new synapses. When we're thinking about something, we're going to recruit new cells around that thought by creating synapses to nearby neurons.
I'm working on new synapses myself.
Right?
I've always thought affirmations were just kind of dumb. I just always thought, I'm not going to do affirmations.
Right.
What's the skit on Saturday Night Live where they...
Stuart Smalley.
Yes.
I'm good enough.
Yes.
I'm
That's what I always think of when I think
kind
of
enough.
affirmations. But I've
And
been
people
doing
like me.
that.
Darn it.
But I've been doing some of it, and it really helps. It really helps change that thought pattern.
Right,
So,
right. And
there's something to it.
right. And
Absolutely.
identifying when that negative thought, that ugly thought comes in,
Yes.
identifying, hey, you know what?
Stop
this is
it.
not even real. These thoughts aren't even
Exactly.
real,
Yeah.
and they're paralyzing sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so just say, you know what? You're not real. And for me, I'm Christian, so it's like in the Bible it says, don't be afraid, don't fear, don't have anxiety, like 365 times. So if you're having anxiety, you could probably find a Bible verse that tells you, to think on these other things. Think on these things.
Yeah.
So those are positive affirmations. It's think on the positive things,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
Don't obsess on the others.
exactly.
Yeah.
Where am I at on my notes? So what are some things, that we can do
Yeah.
for anxiety?
Heck yeah. That's, oh my gosh. What you've got listed.
Okay.
Number one, Well,
Well, I would
medication.
avoid number,
okay, the
so
first one.
So the first one is there are medicines that people can use, and if you're paralyzed, you can use maybe some beta blockers,
Yeah.
which are blood pressure medicines, but they work by decreasing your sympathetic nervous system output. And of the medications, that are available, these are probably safer. Probably.
Yeah.
But all medications are going to have side effects.
Yeah.
Buspirone is specifically for anxiety. It's taken a couple of times a day usually, I think, unless they have a long acting now. I don't know. I'm not keeping track of this.
Yeah.
Antidepressants are being used off, they were initially off label because they're antidepressants, but they are used in higher doses usually for anxiety. And I have no idea what the mechanism of that is supposed to be, how that's supposed to work. I have some serious, negative thoughts, I guess.
Yeah. And
If you're on an antidepressant or medication, do not go off of it without
Right.
talking to your doctor.
yeah.
And if you're going to go off any medications, they need to be weaned off slowly over
Yeah.
time. Because if you go off of something quickly, what's going to
Yeah.
happen?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. All kinds of anxiety, and there's
Yeah.
just all kinds of different side effects you can have. So it's not a good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen people try to do it, and and it's, but they then think it's because they think the med is completely bad because they went off of it cold turkey, and it's not necessarily true. Sometimes it can be appropriate in certain situations, and they need to continue taking it. But
Right.
it's a case by case.
It's a case by
So-
case. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I just don't want anybody listening to this to think, oh, well, I'm on an antidepressant, I shouldn't be taking it. Like you said, if they are on one, they need to talk about it with their doctor.
And I think one
Absolutely.
of the things is, if you're on a medication because you had depression or anxiety or whatever you had, and you try to go off of it without changing the underlying
Triggers.
everything else
Yeah.
going on, like your nutrition status and your
Yes.
exercise and your sleep and your vitamins and stuff like that, you're going at best get back to your underlying status, and at worst feel worse after being on the medication also. So anyway, but my least favorite of all are benzos. And benzos are going to be things like Xanax, Valium, clonazepam, okay? And the reason that they are my least favorite is they work great for a brief period of time. And once that brief period of time is over, and once they are out of your system, then your anxiety is going to be worse than it was before taking them. So you will have withdrawal effects from when that wears off.
Yeah.
So you didn't fix the underlying problem, and now you have a second problem because you don't have that benzo available, so you're worse. So and the other thing is, they're supposed to be used intermittently for a maximum of like 2 weeks. And there are people who were prescribed benzos decades ago
Yeah.
who can't get off of them.
Yeah.
And there's potentially some bad effects with long-term effects with memory and emotions and things like that. So yeah,
Just not a good idea.
right. Exactly. So what are some things if medicine is the last resort for anxiety or something to be used very sparingly, what are some ideas like that you got with your coaching stuff?
Oh my gosh.
What kind of things did
Yeah.
they talk about?
We talk a lot about exercise. We talk about yoga. We talk about mindfulness, meditation, nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. All of the above. Sleep.
Yeah, sleep.
Good sleep hygiene.
Yeah, good sleep hygiene.
Avoid caffeine.
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I know, right? That's the
5 out of 6 is not that bad, right?
Do the best you can do, right? I mean, limit some of that, you know?
Right,
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
right. And there's a nutritional component, also for anxiety. And what are some of the things that trigger anxiety as far as foods?
Oh my gosh, just your junk foods, your sugary,
Yeah.
the crap that just kills your gut.
Right, it kills your gut, so your neurotransmitters are lower. Because
Yeah.
80, they don't even know, but they think 80 to 90% of neurotransmitters are made in your gut. So if your gut is full
So
of
huge.
sugar and yeast and bad bacteria, then what's going on with your neurotransmitter support? So
Nothing.
yeah. Plus it increases your blood sugar and your insulin levels, so you have fluctuations.
Yeah.
Sugary food, after you eat a sugary something, you're gonna have a drop in your blood sugar.
Bottom out.
And then you get, what happens then? You can get panic attack from your blood sugar going down.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah. Yes.
People don't realize that, but it's so important.
Right. And a lot of people don't have enough protein in their diet. Why is protein important? Is because proteins are made up of amino acids. And amino acids are the building blocks for your neurotransmitters. So, one of them, serotonin and melatonin, are both made from tryptophan, which is high in like poultry and other things like that.
Let's talk about the turkey.
Yeah, so the turkey's supposed to make you tired because it makes melatonin. It's probably all the blood sugar going up and
Yeah.
all the blood
Yeah.
going to your gut to digest your your dinner. But
Right.
yeah, so you have to have amino acids to make neurotransmitters. And the other thing is, and this is going to sound crazy, but your brain needs healthy fats,
Mm-hmm.
right? There was a really interesting study a long time ago, and it looked at people who had depression and anxiety, and they were maxed out on drugs, on meds. And they put them on high-dose fish oil, and their symptoms got better.
Really
Yeah.
interesting.
And they were already maxed out on meds. What if
Who
we
knew?
like give them the fish oil before the meds, right?
I know, right? Yeah.
Because like 60% of your brain is made of fat, and all of the cell membranes in your entire body are all made of fat. But especially in your brain, that we have to have healthy fats to protect our neurons in our brain. They're not only do they have a membrane, but then they also have other cells that are just fats, surrounding them, kind of like hot dog bun. We have these cells over the neurons to protect them, and they're fats. So what happens if you're on a low-fat diet?
Right. Hence the reason I always cringe when people tell me that they're on a low carb or they're on a low fat or just any
Right.
kind of an elimination diet.
Right.
Always,
Exactly.
no,
How are you
you
getting?
don't want to do that.
Yeah. How's your brain
Yeah,
gonna feel with no fat?
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah.
And then one of the last things that I'm really into for preventing anxiety. You already said it earlier.
I
Menopause,
did.
right?
Oh yeah,
So
that's a big one.
so what happened with that?
Oh, I think I made a phone call to you. Perhaps.
Perhaps.
And you gave me some really good advice
What was
about
that?
nutrition, about
Okay.
hormones,
Okay.
about some replacement therapies, about some
Okay.
supplements that I should take.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
that was genius.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, it got me through it.
one of the things that when I started doing when I started getting into hormones, one of the things that I started seeing is women in their 40s
All the time.
all the time, okay? And when I was starting this, I didn't, or before like learning about hormones, what did I do? Wrote them a freaking prescription because that's what I was taught.
You're trained. Yeah.
That's what I was trained to do.
Yep.
Kind of like training an animal. Like the seal, like with the like that does the flippers.
Yeah,
I was
know.
trained to write a prescription. And when I started like looking at women's hormones, and I'd see that 45-year-old woman, and they would come in and they had anxiety and depression. And here's the thing that was probably causing the anxiety and depression. They stopped sleeping through the night. They would wake up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and their mind was racing, and they couldn't shut it off. And so their sleep was totally disordered. And I would, eventually I learned how to test their hormones, and I would test them. And what were they low in?
Oh gosh, maybe progesterone?
Progesterone.
Yeah.
They were all low in progesterone. A lot of them had high levels of estrogen, high levels of testosterone, but their progesterone was really low. And this was important because progesterone makes the neurotransmitter GABA, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter that slows your brain down. GABA.
So simple. I mean,
So
simple, but it's not.
So progesterone helps you make GABA, and if you have GABA, you can slow down your thoughts and kind of shut the brakes off of those thoughts that are otherwise like going crazy. So getting your hormones in balance can help with anxiety. People who have too much cortisol will have anxiety. Eventually, when your estrogen levels drop, you can have anxiety from that too. So all of those things can cause anxiety. But let's talk about GABA, because GABA, being a neurotransmitter that slows your brain down, there are ways to get GABA also. And so GABA it's available over the counter, but there's some question about whether it gets across the blood-brain barrier very well. So whether it's usable in GABA supplements. There's something called L-theanine, and L-theanine, that's the capital L. That means it's a left-sided molecule. Not that anybody cares about that, but theanine, Theonline, and it might be able to cross the blood-brain barrier better and make GABA inside the brain. And this is interesting because it's found in teas. So like chamomile tea and maca tea are high in L-theanine. And it looks like L-theanine breaks into glutamine and glutamate, which cross the blood-brain barrier and makes GABA. So that's why green tea, it has a little bit of caffeine, but it doesn't have the same effect as coffee, right? Because there's more L-theanine in it. So green tea, chamomile tea.
I just learned something today. I did not know that.
It's amazing.
I don't know how many times people have asked me that, and I didn't know the answer to that. Thank you.
I didn't even know there was a question to that, but
I've had people say that to me. Why don't you feel the same way? I did not know that.
You mean with green tea?
Yeah.
Yeah, even though there's a little bit of caffeine, there's not nearly as much as coffee, but it's the L-theanine that tempers that. Yeah. Hops are interesting because sometimes if you're having a beer, you feel relaxed because you're having a beer from the hops, but you don't want to drink the alcohol because alcohol is so
what happens
hard.
later.
It's so hard. Yes, what happens later, you're more anxious, and it's so hard on your liver.
Yeah.
A safe level of alcohol in women is like less than 1 drink per day. That's the safe level in women. In guys, it's 2 or less. That's the safe level. But hops have this sedating effect almost, and it might be really more effective with valerian root, which is another herbal thing.
Yeah.
So those two together might be really cool.
Yeah.
In women, because there's estrogenic effects in hops.
Okay.
So it might be something that women might be okay with, but guys may not want extra estrogenic effects.
Interesting.
So you're thinking about a guy with man boobs right now, right?
Yeah, I sure am.
Yeah,
Now I know why.
there is that.
Gosh, too many hops for you,
Too
buddy.
many- Exactly.
Woo,
No more
back
hops
up.
for you.
So what are alternatives? Where can you find hops besides beer? I'm ignorant to this.
nowhere that I know.
What do you?
You know, they're
like,
really
can you
expensive.
Put some hops on my
I
salad?
think you could probably find them on Amazon, but you know, once again, they're estrogenic, so you want to make sure your progesterone levels are okay before you're doing anything estrogenic.
That's why you need to talk to Dr. Bonnet.
Yeah.
To test it. But anyway.
So anyway, and then there's
Yes.
other foods. Fermented foods are great. Aw, Anna just sent me a birthday thing. So
yeah, it's Dr. Bonnet's birthday today.
thank you.
Yeah, happy birthday, Dr. Bonnet.
Thank you. All right, so fermented yogurt, kefir, which is like fermented milk kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You can use non-dairy fermented things. Citrus fruits like oranges, walnuts and almonds, spinach and broccoli, sweet potatoes, lentils and beans, brown rice. So really healthy stuff that you know can help you make GABA. Soy is listed, but you have to be careful with soy to make sure it's not, you know, if it's organic and if it's fermented, it's safer. Because soy is estrogenic also, and it can affect your thyroid hormone. So too much soy can be bad for your thyroid. Yeah.
Okay.
And then supplements for anxiety. So,
oh my gosh. Yeah.
I really believe in a good multivitamin for people because I don't think anybody has a perfect diet except for Kelly, who has a perfect diet. But other than that,
Along with my coffee.
so now she needs B vitamins just for the coffee. But
and I do take a vitamin. I do that.
Right. So a good multivitamin, I think, is beneficial, and especially if it has extra B vitamins for neurotransmitter support. Magnesium. You know, a lot of people are deficient in magnesium anyway, and it is very relaxing and sedating. But what's the problem with magnesium if people take too much?
Maybe you might have some diarrhea with that.
You might have a lot of diarrhea with that.
Yeah, and that's, I've experienced that.
Right.
And it just, your gut just rolls if you,
Well,
I'm kind of sensitive with that stuff. I know that much.
There's a reason it's used as a bowel prep if you're having a colonoscopy.
Yeah. Neg citrate, ever heard of that, guys? Those little green bottles. I don't know that they use that exactly anymore.
No,
but
probably not.
It's in
For a reason.
Somehow mixed.
Yeah. So magnesium is great in moderation. You can soak in a bathtub with Epsom salts.
Yes, and get the ones with lavender.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the lavender oil is the best.
So calming.
Relaxing, yeah.
So calming.
And I did not bring my list of oils that are calming, but that's one of them. Orange is one of them, I know.
Yeah.
Too,
So one thing with magnesium is magnesium oxide is probably nearly worthless because you only absorb about 4% of that. So the rest is excreted. 96% is excreted.
Wow, that much?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So you're probably not going to get
okay.
any benefit from mag oxide. And unfortunately, if you go to Walmart or Hy-Vee, usually you're going to have mag oxide is the main one. Now they're switching over. You can get mag citrate, like the Calm powder, but like Kelly said, you have to be really careful with it and smart.
Crazy.
Start small, and it's great at bedtime because it's so relaxing.
It relaxes your muscles.
But you wouldn't want to take a heaping tablespoon of that before work because you won't be at work very
Unless you
long.
want an excuse to not be at work.
Right.
Be in the bathroom all day. I just wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah. So we already kind of talked about GABA agonists, like GABA, supplementing GABA, L-theanine, glutamine. I'd be careful with supplementing, that, but green tea is awesome. Green tea, I don't know if the green tea extracts, you're not going to get the L-theanine, you're just getting the ECGC, which people use for weight loss.
Okay.
So you want to get that, you'd want to get the green tea itself probably. There's a bunch of herbal things for anxiety. I don't have them listed. And then there's something called adrena adaptogens that are supposed to help decrease the amount of cortisol and adrenaline secretion. And one of those is called ashwagandha. And so a lot of people recommend that for decreasing anxiety. But once again, everybody is an individual. And so you have to, if you're going to try something, try a small amount to make sure you tolerate it and that it doesn't have the opposite effects, because some people don't tolerate ashwagandha. So anyway,
You've covered a ton. So much. I always learn something every time.
really, Awesome.
Sometimes it takes me 2 or 3 times, but I get it. Eventually. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So, I would say if anybody's interested in a little more help, a little more support with their anxiety, give us a call. Text us, message us, let us know if there's something more that we can do to support you in that.
Yeah. I think that just realizing that it's normal. Everybody has anxiety. One of the things I always try to do when I was seeing somebody and they had panic disorder in the office was just normalize it for them.
Thank you.
Yes,
it's because if you've never had any exposure to that, or experienced it, it's scary.
It's really scary, but
that compounds it.
Because then you have the fear of the unknown. Is like, what is going on with my body? And you can't control it. So I always wanted to kind of normalize panic attacks and like walk people through what was happening and realize, hey, this is just a physiologic response to high stress hormones, and your heart rate goes up, and you're not gonna die. You're gonna be okay. And you can breathe in a bag if you're hyperventilating.
I learned the breathing. Yes.
You need to slow down your breathing because when you have a panic attack, you breathe too fast, and you can get tingling in your lips and your fingers and toes. And the reason is because your carbon dioxide, you're blowing off carbon dioxide, so it causes your calcium level in your bloodstream to be lower, and that makes your nerves tingly. So you breathe into a bag to increase your carbon dioxide, and your calcium, normalizes. So it's physiologic, it's normal, you just have to realize, okay, this is just a normal response.
And it's manageable.
It is manageable. Yeah.
There are ways to deal with it and get through it.
Yeah.
So.
The first time, make sure you're not having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And after
and don't be surprised if your doctor says, we're going to take you to the emergency room now, because this is, just got to rule these things out, people. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, go ahead and post it. I've recorded mine, so I'm going to upload it onto Facebook or something. Kelly's Facebook Live. And I don't know, did we have anybody even like tune in with us?
Yeah, there's some people tuned in. Hi, Chris, and Trisha's on here.
Hey, hi guys.
Yeah, hi you guys.
Hi Chris.
Hello,
hi Trisha.
So
So awesome. So if you have other questions later on, post them. If you're seeing this later, post them underneath, and Kelly and I can try to get back to you and answer your questions for you.
Absolutely.
If they're easy.
Okay.
If we don't have to think too much.
Yeah. Thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and whoever is tuning in later, just make a note of that if you want to post that in the comments too. That'd be great.
All right.
We'll see you for the next one.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.